All right, welcome everybody. We are here with Michael Ham, who is from New York, and he is a co-founder of the company Wild Orchard. This tea company, Wild Orchard, has quickly become my favorite tea company because I think it's the cleanest one out there. And we're going to go over why it's the cleanest, and the very intentional methods behind the agriculture, the cultivation, packaging, manufacturing, all the above that makes it, I think, such a great product that I think that the world needs to hear about. And so I have Michael with me. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks so much, Dr. Calvin, for having us being able to share our story in front of your audience.
Absolutely. So, Michael, we have briefly chatted about just like we're twins in our upbringing of academics and our college degrees and whatnot. So, talk to me. Tell me about where you went to college, what you studied.
Yeah, so I grew up in the great nation of Canada, or the neighbors to the north. Little friction going on these days, but I think all work out in the end. But I grew up in beautiful Vancouver. I grew up loving sports. From an immigrant family, my parents immigrated to Canada, decades ago, and I loved the natural surrounding. Grew up playing sports with my friends. That's what we usually did after school on the weekends. And when it came time to decide on a college major, I just decided to go with my passion. So I majored in kinesiology, and at the time, I thought nutrition was so important for health, so I minored in nutrition, and very similar to the path you took. So in college, I chose those areas of subject areas because I really wanted to learn deeply about how they impacted the human condition, and then in turn take that knowledge and help others live as their healthiest lives possible.
Yeah, that's awesome. My intention also going into kinesiology was I think this is going to be the best in terms of studying like human health. I thought it was better to me for that better suited for me than like something like pre-med and just straight studying biology. Because I think that, it was when I looked at the folks who were in medicine, or even like in college too, the folks who were studying biology and on a pre-med track versus the folks that were in kinesiology, there's a clear difference. Who's healthier, who's more athletic, who's more fit, right? Who just seems like that they really have their health dialed in. So I think I'm gonna go along with this crowd because I think they actually know how to be healthy. But yeah, that's very similar. I remember taking nutrition as well too because I thought, well, I'm how can you can't like outwork a bad diet, so I should learn about nutrition and how to nourish the body properly, how vitamins and minerals, how all those things work to help me with like performance and whatnot in athletics. So that's very cool. And did you go further into, a career path with through, kinesiology or in healthcare?
Well, just to your point, it's crazy in med school how they only give about, I heard, 10 classes or 10 hours of instruction on nutrition. That boggles my mind that people we're under the care for our health only have that little amount of education on nutrition specifically. For me, after I got my degree, I had many choices, right? For kinesiology, you can go into exercise science, you can go into physiotherapy, education. And I actually chose the education track. So I took one more year, got an education degree, and I actually became a high school teacher for a couple years. So yeah, that was an interesting experience. But as much as I love teaching and being a part of that environment, right? I after a couple of years, I moved to New York because I had a chance to travel more with a nonprofit, and I just felt that I could when I'm in my 20s, that's the time to explore the world and then still teach at the same time. So that's what I did about 20 plus years ago. So ever since then, I've pretty much been in the health and wellness field, educating as an educator, but also solution provider. And it's only about 6 years ago that we founded the Wild Orchard Tea Company.
Gotcha. So, wow. I didn't realize that you did teaching, back in the day, but that's amazing. I mean, I could totally see it because I feel like you have this very like gentleness about you, right? Like a gentle soul, very grounded, like very zen like. So I feel like that being a teacher or being somebody who can teach people things, uh, a- it's effective because I feel like you're easy to approach, right? You're somebody that I feel like cares. So that's great. So okay, 6 years ago, Wild Orchard. What's the story there? How did it even like come about?
So I first learned of the farm in the early 2000s. So while I was traveling in Korea, a good friend of mine, one of my closest friends, met in college. He suggested I go visit the farm, and that's it. Had only been 3 years since the seeds were planted on barren volcanic soil, and back then I just remember being amazed at the long-term vision. Just planting by seed, hearing that the reason why they did that instead of transplant existing tea plants is because the taproot would go deeper into the soil and pull more nutrients up. And back then the tea trees were very young, so just to hear the vision for 10 years later, 20 years later, I was just kind of like, wow, this is very unique, right? I was like, how do you make money then? Oh, yeah, yeah, money is secondary because if we cared about making money quickly, we wouldn't plant by seed. We would take the trees and transplant them, right? So I was like, oh, this is very unique. And then I started drinking the tea from a sister farm where they got the seeds for the last 20 or so years. And I just really enjoyed it. And then 6 years ago, 6 years ago was the time when my college friend, he said, hey, why don't we start Wild Orchard? And I didn't hesitate because I knew how special the farm was. I had already been running another company and I still do today, but I didn't want to give up the opportunity. So that's how it started.
That's amazing. So it's sort of like a labor of love, right? And unfortunately, today in whether it's health, wellness, what have you, and we met at the Natural Products Expo. So there were I don't know probably like thousands of companies there, and it's hard to make money. I feel like sometimes in this health arena, if you want to do it right because there's a lot of hoops to jump through. There's logistics involved, right? And and on the consumer side, that's why it feels like in order for me to buy better products, like if I was to go to Whole Foods, over here we have Mother's, Sprouts, if I was to get organic food, cleaner food, right? That's minimally processed. That's you try to do as little to it as possible, but that's more expensive. And to just for companies, and I know that we're for companies to get like an organic certification, they also have to do certain things but also pay for the certification process. So all of that takes a lot of money, and and it may not be all too profitable for somebody that's trying to do it right. Would you say that's the case?
It definitely is the case. The barrier to entry is much higher because of the obviously the cost involved. If you want to create a more nutrient dense crop and better for your health, better for the planet, there's obviously higher value inputs that are being considered. So the hardest part for a brand like us and other regenerative organic brands is education. So price is an issue in the absence of value. So when people cannot see the value, obviously everyone's going to go to the lower price, right? Because that's what hits the bottom line immediately. But I whenever I talk to people who care about health, I always frame it this way: buying nutrient dense food is going to cost more, but think of it as an expense, not a cost. I think of it as an investment, not an expense, because you're either going to pay that investment now or you're going to pay the cost later in terms of your health. So it's really people, when they understand that paradigm and the trade off, it kind of clicks a little more.
Yeah, absolutely. It really we really have to see it in a way where, we are putting the money towards bettering our health so that, we don't end up with long-term diseases, or at least try to prevent as many like ailments as possible, because not only is that, even if things are covered under insurance, you're missing out on time, energy, effort, vitality, and moments in life that are very crucial. So, amen to that, preaching to the choir there. So back on Wild Orchard, there's a very key points that I really love about your brand is that, especially when we were in person and you were just telling me these like little things that you guys would do, right? But one of the things that is great about Wild Orchard is that it's regenerative organic certified. What does that mean?
Okay, so a lot of people when they go to the grocery store, you're gonna see a bunch of stuff. Like 20 years ago, when I studied nutrition, so obviously I learned about how to read a label. The stuff that you can't pronounce properly, it's not good for you 99% of the time, right?
Yeah.
So you learn to read a label, how to see past marketing in terms of what's benefiting your health. Back then, it wasn't much of an environmental focus, mainly health and nutrition, right? So, what regenerative organic is, uh, we see organic certification, the USDA, the green certification. I started looking for that about 20, 25 years ago. Then there's stuff like fair trade, non-GMO. Most of the people may know a bit about it, but the reason why regenerative organic certification is such a great holistic certification is the three pillars are soil health. So you have to have organic as a base. So you don't have to worry about pesticides, GMOs, because it's baked in with the USDA organic, but they take it one step further, focusing on the soil health of the soil, making sure the soil microbiome is healthy so that whatever is grown in that soil, the chances are the nutrient density is much higher than even organic, and then obviously much more than conventional. So soil health is critical for foods that can help us nourish our cells and our whole body. The second pillar is animal welfare. We know uh, probably the your audience will know CAFO, like the way that the mass industrialized way of raising chickens and livestock. They crowd them in. They're not treated humanely. And so they suffer for the sake of producing meat. So the better way to do that is treat animals fairly. There's animal welfare standards so that, everything is much better, right? Uh, it's not only the animals, it's creating an environment that's conducive to pollinators, which is dying off rapidly throughout the world. And they're responsible for huge percentage of our food. Uh, all the other things like insects that make that make a part of the whole ecology of a location is important. And then the third thing that's critical is who's growing the food. Oftentimes today, because most food is a commodity, it's a race to the bottom with price. And then the people that lose out the most are the farmers. They're doing the hardest work and then they're getting hardly rewarded at all. And that's why younger people don't want to go into agriculture. So the ROC handles all three of these pillars of what constitute the way a farm should run. So if you're able to consume a food grown on a regenerative organic farm, you're actually protecting the livelihoods of the farmers so that they can produce food that's healthy for us and food that's actually climate positive and good for the environment.
Yeah, I think the farmers, like you said, just it's such a hard job, especially if you're trying to do it right. And if you're trying to make things very clean, there's a lot of things to consider. Now, with regenerative, so my understanding of it is like, okay, we live in this, well, right now our food system is, our food that we grow is so depleted of nutrients because we're essentially over harvesting, and we're not letting things kind of, we're not letting the plant die off, and then have the leaves and whatnot like go back, like regenerate, right, decay back into the soil. And so the whole goal of regenerative agriculture is to allow that process to happen. Is that right?
Yeah, it's really about focusing on the health of the soil, making sure the microbiome is always full of life. And that requires exactly what you said. You can't till the soil because when you till the soil, it destroys the microbial activity and life in the soil. So it depletes the soil. You want to anything that falls on the ground, the best way is not to bring in fertilizers, synthetic fertilizers that are actually petroleum based. You want to take the dead leaves, the dead tea tree leaves, and other materials and create compost that was originally from the farm. And as it decays, it's actually giving more, increasing the organic living matter of the soil, giving it life. So, what all the root systems that are in the ground, when the soil is flourishing with life, that's where the nutrient density increases.
So so the farm is, how big's the farm? It's, so the farm's in Jeju Island in South Korea. How big is it?
It's a the tea portion of the farm is 1,000 acres.
Oh, wow. So there's more to the farm than just tea.
We have livestock too on the separate section of the farm, like pigs and cows. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
And we have wild animals always coming into our tea farm too, like deer and lots of bees, pollinators. Because when I see that, I'm like, I know we're doing it the right way. Because the reason why bee population is dying off is because there's just too many chemicals. They don't go and they die off when they're exposed to chemicals, right?
Yeah. Okay. And now on the tea side, right? What you explained to me was the trees, the tea trees are huge, like they're gigantic versus many, maybe many of the other brands or other farms, or how people grow tea is they have smaller trees. What's kind of like the difference or the benefits to that?
So the reason we called our farm and our brand Wild Orchard is we wanted to let nature grow our teas. So just to give you an example, most tea farms out there, the tea trees are about waist level. It's because it's just easy to harvest. When you come to our farm, certainly we have a section that's a little lower trim that make it easier to harvest, but there's also a lot of trees that are up to 5 meters tall because they grew wild over the last 25 years. And a tea tree has to grow a certain height or a certain amount in order for the tea seeds to form. And then when they bud into flowers, that's when the pollinators come, the bees come, and they pollinate the flower and they make honey back in their hive. And what we do is when the tea seeds fall to the ground, we harvest them all too. And we're one of the rare tea farms that produce green tea seed oil at the level that we do, regenerative organic. And the tea seed oil can be used just like an olive oil, for culinary purposes, but it's one of the most potent ingredients in skincare because there's so much antioxidants in the seed oil, and we're talking to many skincare companies to supply them with our green tea seed oil.
Wow, wow, that's amazing. Uh, I mean, there's just so much, right? Like I think that it's not just one purpose, right? For it, there's multi purposes to what you guys are growing, right? But just on the tea side, obviously no pesticides being used, right? Which is, I think I read somewhere that tea in general, right, has probably it's probably the most sprayed crop. I would say coffee is probably another one, but tea is way up there.
It is. It is. And then not only is spraying the problem. It's the tea leaf is known to be a bioremediator. It's pretty much absorbing at a very high rate everything in its environment, below the ground, above the ground, and in its vicinity. So if the other thing that people don't consider is if you purchase your tea from a farm that's like using fossil fuels to harvest the tea, all of that exhaust is being absorbed by the tea leaves. Even though the farm may be organic, a lot of these nitrogen oxides, the bad stuff that's coming out of the machinery, it's actually all being absorbed.
Wow. So how do you guys mitigate that? I mean, do the farmers do they I, I'm like I'm thinking of like ancient days where they have the ox, you know?
Well, we have to learn from ancient wisdom and figure out how to do it in a way in modern society to keep the quality high. So number one is using cotton gloves, organic cotton gloves. So even the oils from someone's skin doesn't permeate and get onto the tea leaves, right? That's
Wow.
one. We do a lot of hand picking. We've done mostly hand picking up until now, but as the business grows, we need to find more scalable ways. So the second way is to use battery powered machinery. So the battery powered machinery can do the volume of 10 hand pickers. So obviously using that is important for us in the future. And then the other thing that I think what's very unique that we do from the very beginning was we live in a polluted world, especially in Asia. There's so much pollution, air pollution. And even though our farm, the soil, everything is handled pristinely, we can't control what's coming from the air from thousands of miles and landing on our tea leaves, right? So we're very unique in that we wash it 4 times using mineral water. So we wash it 4 times so that we don't want anything to go in between the leaf and the cup.
So with that's I don't hear of any brands that can brag about washing their tea leaves 4 times.
I don't think anyone will do it because it's so painstaking.
Is it really? Wow.
I mean,
So what's the process like? I mean, when you wash it, do you have to dry it and then wash it again?
we just wash it 4 times and then we have a picture of the color of the water. So after
Yeah.
4 times it's clear, but the first time is like yellowish. So even though
Uh,
our tea plants are like pristine, grown, regenerative organically, the pollution on top causes that water to be yellow. I mean, we even are, I'm being general here, but we're even lazy to wash our vegetables. That's why if we go to the pre-wash salads, that's why we buy that because we don't even want to wash our leaves. So
sure.
imagine washing the leaves 4 times. Not many tea companies are going to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, that's great. I mean, that gives me a whole lot of confidence when when I drink the tea because, I know that, like you don't think about that. You don't think about, oh, okay, just because things are, certified organic and everything that you can control, right, is done well. But then there are things that you can't control, such as, something dropping from the skies. And I think that just speaks to how intentional, you guys have thought about everything and how to do this right. Um, so that's awesome. Now, when it comes to no pesticides, washing the tea leaves 4 times, right? There's nothing bad that you guys are putting into, farming practices to, make things grow faster. Um, I want to talk about have you kind of highlight I think at one point you said that the teas are all the same or they all come from black tea or something like that, right? I forgot exactly how you said it, but that it's just different times of harvest.
So, yeah, a lot of people who have consumed tea for many years are sometimes even surprised to hear this. All teas, the tea leaf that was discovered 5,000 years ago in China comes from a tree called Camellia sinensis. And within that that type of tree, Camellia sinensis, there are different kinds. So in Africa and India, we're used to those heavy black teas, robust teas that go into like Earl Grey and other types of English breakfast. That's from the Assamica varietal. So it's more robust. Towards East Asia, Japan, China, Korea, we tend to use the Sinensis varietal. So it's more like the green tea plant. So once you harvest it, when you stop the oxidation right away, stopping the oxidation means you apply heat to it so it doesn't oxidize any further. So one easy example for you, for the audience to understand is if you leave a banana out on the counter, it's oxidizing and then it goes from greenish yellow to yellow to yellow brown to brown. So that's the oxidation process. But in order to stop that, you put high heat to it, then it'll stop it. So green tea is when you stop the oxidation process after you harvest it. When you allow it to half oxidize, that's oolong tea. And then when you allow it to fully oxidize, that's black tea. But it's all from the same plant. It's just a different level of oxidation. And during the oxidation process, it brings out different notes from the leaf. So green tea, when you stop the oxidation, is earthy and grassy. When you go to oolong, it brings out like the flowery notes. And then when you go all the way to black tea, it brings out like roasted, like honey type notes. So even though it's the same tea leaf, you get all these different kinds. And green tea, we think, is the healthiest. Studies show that it is because when you stop the oxidation, it retains the most amount of antioxidants that when we drink it, it starts repairing our cells. And then when you go towards oolong tea and black tea, the caffeine levels go up and the antioxidant levels go down. They're still very good for you because they still have a lot of antioxidants, but they are less than what green tea has.
Is that just because of the roasting process, or the time, maybe the antioxidants decaying over time? What causes
During
that?
the oxidation, those levels change.
I see. I see. And now when so how long does that typically take, from like green tea all the way to like oolong? Is there like a waiting process?
Yeah, I mean, green tea will be the fastest because the oxidation stops right away, and then you have to process it, like roll it. There's several steps to get to the final stage, but I think it's between 24 and 72 hours for all of them to go through that process.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's really interesting. Yeah, that's something that I really didn't know about at all. And it's funny because you like when I went to Taiwan recently, Taiwan is known for their teas, and especially like their high mountain teas and whatnot. But anyways, you go to like a tea shop and it's very like luxurious inside. It's elegant, and they highlight like all these different types of teas. Whether it's like a oolong or something like that. But I didn't know that they all came from, I guess, the same tree or the same type.
Yeah,
And then it was just harvested and then oxidized and roasted differently.
it's amazing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of go, wow, I mean, is it all like a marketing thing? But like, or maybe I don't know.
And it's I only explained the three tea types, but there's also white, yellow, and pu'er, which are less known, but there are six total subtypes of teas within that one leaf and tree.
Wait, so that one tree you can create those different types?
Yep. Six different types of teas.
Wow. That's amazing. And do you guys also offer that as well? Those different
It,
types? What kind of types do you guys offer?
so we do green, oolong, and black. And in the future, we are working on adding white, yellow, and pu'er. Out of all the six pu'er or dark tea, those are the two names. That's the only one that's fermented. Everything else is oxidized, but the pu'er and dark teas are fermented like your sauerkraut or kimchi.
Got it. Yeah, I know that tea is heavier in flavor, right? Just like you said, more robust, right? There's a lot more flavor. It's almost, I guess the difference in is maybe like the difference of maybe kind of like a dark roast, right? Yeah, it feels heavier. But it's also very fragrant too. I like that occasion. Is and how's it that the caffeine levels kind of increase?
So yeah, learned about it before, but not to the point where I can explain it. But during the oxidation process, there's a chemical reaction that increases the caffeine levels as oxidation increases. And
I see.
during that process, it's correlated with the antioxidants going down. So caffeine will go up, antioxidants will go down. But I always tell people, even black tea, you're going to get a lot of health benefits of it from it. But
Right.
green tea is going to be the highest level of antioxidants.
Yeah. So there's green tea, right, which is what you and there's the loose leaf tea that you guys have. And there's also I know you guys also do like some blends where you can kind of create different flavor notes to it because like when we were at 123 Farms, we picked up the we when we did the tea sampling, they were all very good, but I really like for me, I really liked the English cottage, and then my wife likes the one where it's is it Sunday?
Sunday
Sunday brunch?
brunch.
Sunday brunch. That's right. Yeah. And there's different notes. Like one is sweeter, like the Sunday brunch is like a little bit sweeter, but I find that the English cottage has a sweetness to it, but it's very fragrant to me. Um, Heavier and like more robust flavor. So like what goes on in kind of creating those flavors?
So when we first started, we were like, okay, what's the market? Why do a lot of people don't like green tea? Because they usually have lower quality and it comes out bitter. So we were like, okay, we can't just launch with our green tea. Even though it's good, it's going to take a while. So let's come up with a blended line that's almost like a gateway, right? So when people try that, they'll be like, whoa, I've never had anything like this, and start to come in, and we can introduce them to the benefits of green tea, oolong tea, and all these other things that we have. So that's one, our first R&D project was to come up with blends. So we worked with a really 100-plus-year-old blender in Germany, and we sent them our green tea, and they came up with a bunch of blends. We said, let's have different varieties, some like sweet, fruity, others like English cottage that are maybe have notes of vanilla. And They curated a wide ranging type of blends with our green tea. We wanted our green tea to be in it to give the health benefits as well. And we came out with like close to 10 blends. So that's how it started. And then over time, the ones that weren't doing well, we kind of, weeded out or, dropped them. And then we replaced them with others that we thought would do well. And so that's where we are currently with our blends.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of uh, y- I I don't know how much you know dive into like kind of the holistic world, but there's in that world it's kind of the wild west too, where there's lots of information, especially in today, as people are getting more into it. But there's many people that will say, oh, like you should avoid caffeine, because caffeine is not healthy for you and whatnot. But I personally believe that's maybe taken out of context because I kind of go, well, let's look at the Japanese, right? Or the Chinese, or a lot of these like Asian populations that are very healthy, live for a long time, centenarians, and there is caffeine in the form of tea, usually that's in their daily life. So have you sort of heard or delve into the like what that is all about, the whole caffeine thing? Maybe even like, is there something where the tea maybe counteracts some of that?
I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions because people think caffeine is all equal. So the caffeine in coffee, they drink it, makes their heart jump, they crash, they have to drink more to keep that energy level up. And they think the caffeine in tea has the exact same impact, maybe less pronounced because there's less of it. But they don't. So whenever I come across someone that says, "Oh, does it have caffeine?" I always ask, oh, why do you ask? Do you have an issue with caffeine? And they're like, yeah, it just, my body doesn't react to it well. Then I say, do you know that the caffeine in tea, because there's an amino acid called L-theanine, it releases it very slowly, gives you a smooth, sustained energy, and it adds calm focus to it. So it doesn't give you the up and down, the spike and the crash. And so the easiest way I can explain it to people is coffee is like someone punching you to keep you awake. It's like jarring your body, and tea is like someone giving you a soothing massage.
Ah,
So the caffeine molecule is exact same in both coffee and tea, but the way that it works in the body is different. So once I explain that, people are like, "Oh, I never knew that." And so obviously there are some people who are extremely sensitive to caffeine. So even though tea has that limited, much less amount of caffeine, they could still be impacted. But I've talked to thousands of people about this. And then the ones that try the tea, I haven't seen many people that have still had a problem. Although obviously there are people who are going to be hypersensitive to caffeine, but I've converted a lot of people who thought I can't have tea because there's caffeine in there, and they drink tea. And to your point, in Japan, if you go to the schools, I heard some schools have green tea coming out of the water fountain. Green tea
wow.
is so prevalent in Japan. So if you look at the health and the obesity rates of children in Japan to the US, it's no contest.
Yeah, there it's amazing what we can learn from Japan, Japanese culture, but really all of Asian culture, I think. I mean, we're talking about like thousands of years of history there, right? And I guess that's the difference really in mindset, at least in the world that I work in, which is healthcare of like, sure, we have science and Western medicine, which is amazing, but that's like a couple hundred years
Yeah.
compared to, thousands of years, 5,000 years of traditional medicine, ancient medicine, healthcare knowledge. There's wisdom there that we can really like learn about. And like, I always tell people, I go, if, this is something that has been grown naturally. It wasn't something that we just genetically modified and created. Like most of the vegetables and the fruits that are in our grocery stores, that doesn't naturally occur in nature. We sort of like put two and two together, and then we kind of like facilitated that process, right? But if we look at what actually happens in nature, um, you know, God really provided us all the materials, all the good things, and I think that sure. Can tea and coffee, for that matter, too, help us with like our energy levels and keeping us focused? Yes, absolutely. But I think that there's so many other benefits, so many other medicinal purposes that go along with it. And it's like you just look, for some reason, in many cultures, you drink tea like after a meal, a nice hot tea that you sip on. There's almost like this soothing purpose behind it. Sometimes when you're sick, you make a different type of concoction, right? If you're feeling ill, or if you are like have really low energy or have some sort of like long-term issue, then you might continuously drink, another type of tea. And then some people might call it like, oh, that's like an herbal tea or an herbal drink or an herbal medicine, right? I think we need to sort of look at these things as medicine, like everyday medicine, not just like, hey, I I I have a really bad issue like an infection or something, and I have to use antibiotics as my medicine. No, like this is an everyday medicine, right? As an everyday support to help my body because it's built in. It's built in to help us. It's built in so that we can consume it, so that we can get these antioxidants and whatnot. I mean, I think there's that bit of a spiritual component to it. Do you think that way? Do you agree?
I agree with you. So first of all, tea, there's the physical health component. We have so many studies, especially from Japan over decades. Tea impacts positively our health from the tip of our head to the bottom of our feet. So our cardiovascular, our cell repair, our dental health, our eye health, diabetes, weight balance, which is the big one, right? For most
Yeah.
people. Um, uh, the biggest killers are cancer, stroke, cardiovascular, and stress. It helps with all of those things. So beyond that, though, there's the mind health component. Being able
Mm,
to invite someone over, brew tea, have a great talk, build your relationships. That's a huge stress reliever. So we
mm,
can't underestimate the mind health component in terms of a daily ritual, just getting together with someone. I always love just inviting someone and although we use tea bags when we're on the go and stuff, because we're always in a rush, we don't have the time. But when you invite someone and you go through the brewing of the loose leaf tea, and
mhm.
people see and hear the pouring of the water, they
Uh,
smell the leaves, that in itself is not only physically impacting you in a positive way, there's a mind component to it as well.
it's very therapeutic.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with you on that. I think that these nuances really need to be highlighted. And I think we need to think, more intricately than simply like, oh, like I have a problem and I need a pill, or, I need a doctor, or I need somebody to give me a chemical to create a chemical change in my body. And I go, there's so much more to what we do on a day-to-day basis. And I think, tea is one component, but like you said, the ritual of brewing, I love my, matcha ritual in the morning, which is like, okay, like there's a process, there's a methodology, right? And it's just like me going through the steps. But it is that ritual that I think people hang on to, whether it's even like making coffee, right? And it's that intentional um process of slowing down real quick and making something and having a feeling. You're inducing a feeling. But like you said, right? That hearing that water, smelling the aroma, you're heightening your senses, that warmth that comes from the tea, and then it goes down, and then there's different taste profiles that you're accessing. I think that's incredibly healing, and it activates our parasympathetic,
Oh,
which is, studies say that 99%, right? Pretty much all diseases are linked to some sort of stress or just stress in general, people living in distress. So, and that's basically people living in fight or flight all the time. And that is a killer. And when you go and slow down and have a cup of tea, right, brew some tea, invite people over, this whole process is stimulating to our parasympathetic. It's helping us rest and digest and heal, right? And then, like you said, inviting people over to create community. I mean, that is another missing ingredient of long term health. Is that when we look at centenarians, it's not because they live in an apartment all by themselves. They live in a village and they're all together. And they're not connected via the internet. They're usually connected because they're talking with somebody next door. They're bartering, they're trading. And so this sort of human connectiveness needs to be preserved, I think. Especially as we go into, more and more, advancements in how we package products, make products, market products out there, right? It's easy to just be like, oh, here, you're getting a good chemical out of this, right? A healthy antioxidant. But no, there's a process behind that as well too. So that's what I really appreciate. And then the intentionality behind it. I think of the world. I mean, if we look at the highest level of science, right, it is actually the most like woo woo, esoteric stuff. That is actually at the tip top pioneering science, most cutting edge, most scientifically validated. That is all quantum physics. All right. That's where you go. That's all energy, frequency, vibration. And if people are still living in this material world of like, I'm not going to believe anything I can't see, I'm sorry, but you're behind. The highest level scientists are thinking in quantum. And this is all about energy, things that we can't necessarily see or feel. But there's something to be said about how somebody prepares a product, right? The intention that goes into creating a product and selling it on the marketplace and delivering it to someone. I mean, it's just so different. And we always kind of know, like we can go, I mean, you live in New York, which I think that, in a big city, in a congested place, you have many different like commerce and people that are delivering goods. You're like, I only go to this one person or this one restaurant or this one place for this certain product, right? And because you go, yeah, the owners there, they really care and they try to do their best. They try to deliver a really good service or product for me. Like for me, and when I go back to San Francisco, and that's where I'm from, that's where my family's from. My family has only certain places that they go to, like for restaurants and whatnot, because they trust the people there. They trust the product. They trust the food. They trust the process that goes in. They think their belief is, I know the owners, number one, and they're good people, and I know what's behind it, and I know that their intention is not just to make a buck, right? I know that their intention is to really like do good. And I think that frequency, that intention alone creates some sort of healing, frequency energy about that product that it transfers to the other person. And so when you start consuming it, when you start taking it, you can really feel it. If you really sit down and listen, you can really feel that, wow, this is a good thing. Like, I feel better. I feel good doing this. I don't know if that sounds all too crazy.
No, it's all good. So two things that while I was listening to you speaking that stood out when I first went to the farm, right around that time that I heard the mindset of all the farmers was number one, a clean harvest can only come from a clean conscience. That was like, I remember that very clearly, right?
Wow.
And the second thing was true gold or real gold does not need plating. Those two things really stood out. So
Wow.
that's why when 6 years ago, when our founder was like, "Hey, let's create a tea company to share this with the world," I was 100% behind it because I knew what the intention was for this tea farm, and I wanted to also spread it around the world.
Yeah, I think that speaks volumes there. The true intention behind it, right, is that the people really behind this whole operation really care. Um, and and can feel it. You can feel the difference. And I think that that's hard for me to explain sometimes. It's hard for anyone to really explain. And it's not until, I don't know, I think it was all meant to be honest with you. Like, literally, I was on my way out. Like, the reason why we met was I was on my way out. I was completely done for the day, pretty tired and overstimulated and saturated with information and whatnot. And I was walking out, and I just so happened at the corner of my eye saw something that said matcha. And I go, okay, I'm a matcha fan. I should just go take a look. And then that's what prompted me. I literally had a thought going like, well, it's another matcha company. Like, I'm not gonna miss out on much. I already talked to like two, three others today. I should just like go to my car. But something just was like, no, you should just go check it out. And it's just so interesting to me how it all happened. But when I talk to you, when I see what was happening, when I engage with even some of your other team members there, it was like, wow, you can feel that there's an energetic difference. When I went to 123 Farms, it was like, and you guys put up that event, the tea tasting event and everything. And that farm is great, by the way. But just the whole environment, like, there's such a different energy about it that is contagious, right? And that you can't explain. So I think that there's a lot there.
It's why we have festivals. So, we live in a digital world, and people we know will come across us digitally, either through socials or a referral. They'll buy a product. But our end goal is really to create in-person events, as you experienced at 123 Farm, so we can take it to the next level and really deepen relationships right? And community.
Yeah, and what was really nice that I found at the event was you said like there were a lot of team members there, and I go, "Wow, is this like your whole team?" And I think you said like you guys have like 6 people or something
Five.
on your a five, yeah. And I go, "Wait, there's like it feels like there's like 20 people working here," and then you told me that they're all volunteers. So talk to us. What was that program?
So we earlier, several months ago, we created a Friends of Wild Orchard program. We mostly kind of try to recruit young people, whether young adults, college students. We have a few high schoolers. And so when they come in here, we train them about regenerative. Um, First, we train them about tea, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about today. And then we have little programs like, oh, if you want to take part in a Whole Foods demo, you'll be able to build your human skills, learn how to interact with people of all ages, different backgrounds, speak to them about health, speak to them about your values. And then we give points that they can turn those points into buying product on our website. And so that's growing. We have about 20 members now. I want to build it out into the hundreds, right? So it's a win-win situation for a bootstrap company like ours. We can get the word out, but also give rewards where people can also develop their skills, be a part of our growing movement, and being a part of our community.
Yeah, just building community, doing good in the world, right? And then also focusing on the younger folks, the next generation. I think that's really important. I mean, like tending to them and how they develop. I think one of the things you said was this gives them an opportunity to engage with others, to build their communication skills and whatnot. And I think that's so important because in this day and age of like of digital media, right, and connection, we sometimes are deficient in this human connection, this human communication, that one-on-one, right?
Yeah, we definitely different from when I grew up because you'd have to look an adult in the eyes and communicate, right? But these days, everything it tends to be done on the device. So I think it's critical, and it's one of the reasons why we created the Friends of Wild Orchard. You should be able to communicate with anybody, even at my age, with someone younger, all the way up to someone in their 80s and 90s. We should be able to have a very natural conversation, learn from the elders, inspire the younger folk. We got to be able to do more of that. So I think this type of program facilitates that type of growth.
Got it. So, all right. So let's talk about when you mentioned tea bags at first. And there's something very unique about your tea bags because I think most tea bags out there are pretty poisonous. And so there's a very interesting process that you guys go through. And what's special about your guys' tea bags?
Tea bags are not alone in terms of being poisonous. There's so many things out there, right? But the latest studies in the news say tea bags made of plastic are releasing billions of microplastics into your cup, into your teacup, right? So I did some research, and people in the tea industry are like, no, that was a faulty study. They actually use machines to like exacerbate that process. And but then I was like, then do you agree that it at least releases millions of microplastics? And they were like, probably. So I was like, yeah. So billions, maybe not, but millions in each cup. So if we're consuming millions, let's say even hundreds of thousands, where is all of that going? It's going through our system. Eventually, it's going to accumulate in the intestines, in the walls. And then as it gets bigger and bigger, it's going to affect our blood flow, the body's ability to nourish, the blood to nourish our cells, because you have all this synthetic material in there. It's going to have a health impact long term. And you can't say that, oh, there's no definitive studies. Are you going to wait 10, 20 years like cigarettes? And then finally they say, yeah, it's bad for you. Then
Right.
it's too late, right? So what we need to do today is to prevent as much of the synthetic stuff from coming into our bodies, the chemicals, maximize the nutrient giving whole foods, right? The ones that are raised in healthy soil, regenerative, organic, and that will give us the best chance at living a long health span, a long life that is healthy to the very end, where we don't have to depend, we don't get on anyone, we don't have chronic illnesses. And so with tea bags, the majority are plastic. I don't want to like name any names, but if you look at the tea brand and it's plastic, you know that it's going to release millions of plastic particles into your tea bag. So what we want to do is we created tea bags that are made out of plants, plant-based, biodegradable. They're unfortunately right now it's commercially compostable, so it still take like months to break down, but it's the best alternative right now that's not going to poison you with synthetics. And we want to raise the issue so that all the other tea companies switch to the plant-based. And then as soon as home compostable tea bags come out where they will degrade in days or weeks, then we're going to switch to that, right?
Yeah, just keeping everything as clean as possible because it is convenient to using tea bags. It is convenient to carry around, your tea if you're on the go. Not a lot of people, or I guess there's certain situations where you just don't want to take out your fancy set and brew tea, right? So if you're in the office and you're on the run, if you're getting up in the morning and you don't have a lot of time and you need to make some tea, right? Using I think there it just builds confidence to go, okay, I know that I'm not poisoning myself. Because even for me, like, because once I found out that there's so much microplastics and forever chemicals in tea bags, I try to avoid anything with tea bags. And then occasionally, sometimes, like if I go to a restaurant or things like that, and I want to order tea and it comes in a tea bag, I'm just like, I'm looking at the thing going like, well, I want to drink something warm and soothing, but gosh, I just can't help but get my mind. I can't get my mind off of the fact that there's there's microplastics and forever chemicals in there. So using these tea bags, it gives me a whole lot of confidence, right? I just know that there's just no bad stuff in there. And it's convenient, which is doable. See, like before I used to believe that, okay, if it's too convenient, then it's not going to be healthy. But you're proving that wrong. You you guys are innovating and creating a great product there. So that's awesome.
Yeah, the best way to consume tea is loose leaf, obviously, because it's not restricted by anything. It's releasing all of the oils and the flavor. But, and we were kind of on the fence. Do we create tea bags? Because it's not the best way to consume tea. But when we saw the amount of people consuming tea through tea bags, we were like, okay, then let's just create the healthiest, highest quality tea bag. And they're in Whole Foods and other retailers now. So we're happy
Yeah.
that people have access to it.
That's great. And so I think a lot of people have heard about green tea and know about its health benefits. And then people sometimes might go, well, isn't green tea and like matcha, the same thing? Like, what are the differences? I drink a lot of matcha, like every day I pretty much have matcha. And then I will do the loose leaf teas typically in the evening, but in the morning, I really like that matcha ritual that I have. What's the difference between a green tea and matcha?
Okay, we're gonna do a little deep dive here, but I also have a matcha every morning. Powers me through the whole day, pretty much, right? So, as you probably noticed at the 123 Farm when we had our festival, we had a section called Eat Tea. And so, what we teach people is when you brew the tea leaves, whether you brew it once, twice, three times, the maximum amount of uh, the antioxidants that are coming into your cup is like 10%. So 90% of all of the antioxidants are still locked in the leaf. And then what we find is when I ask people, what do you do with that? And they say, oh, I either put it in the compost or throw it away. But when I explain that over 90% of the health benefits and the antioxidants are in the leaf, they're like shocked. So I explain how I actually save them I grind them, put it in my smoothie, or I eat it like a salad to capture all of the antioxidants. And people are like, whoa. So at our festivals, we always teach people you can make pesto with it. You could put it in your smoothie. You could put it in your salad. Because it's brewed, it's not going to affect the taste of your food because it becomes so bland by then, right? It doesn't overpower anything. People are like, wow. And then they try the pesto. They're like, this is the best pesto I ever had. It's like you're getting all the antioxidants from the leaves that you were about to discard. And so matcha, the direct translation of matcha is powdered tea or grounded tea. So you're grinding the leaf into a powder, and that's what matcha is. So matcha, you're getting all of the antioxidants in it. So that's why matcha is so powerful. And that's why I have it in the morning, because when I drink a cup of that, I'm pretty much powered for the whole, at least until the afternoon, right? And then I
Mhm.
have more tea throughout the day. So, but the thing you have to be careful is the matcha may be the highest quality or regenerative organic, but if you put in like a non-organic milk, then it's kind of degrading the overall quality. So we always recommend like either A2 whole milk that's gut friendly, or regenerative organic, or your plant based milk. But even plant based milk, there's so many fillers and unhealthy stuff in there. You really got to find a healthy version of a plant based milk. So if you're going to create a latte, don't just think about, oh, I have a high quality matcha powder. You have to think about what sweetener you're using, what quality milk you're using, and that all kind of contributes to the overall health impact of that drink.
Yeah, and then the black matcha, what, like, I've never heard of a black matcha before. It's definitely my favorite. How does that get made?
So that's my favorite too. And I don't want people to misunderstand because a lot of people are like, is that ceremonial? So matcha, pretty much that whole process we owe to the Japanese people of shading it, when you shade it, you bring out the colors because the L-theanine gets produced, the bright, vibrant green color. The one thing we saw as a drawback of the plastic shading is when 40 degrees Celsius or 100 plus Fahrenheit sun is bearing down on that plastic, we know that it's breaking down the plastic. And some of that is going to come onto the tea leaf. So we're not comfortable using plastic to shade it to create ceremonial matcha the way that it's been done for a long time. So we use matcha that isn't sun shaded. It's the sun has grown the tea leaves that we grind into a powder. So the color is not vibrant green. It's going to be more dull green, but we feel it's going to have a higher nutritional value. So we've only created it for latte grade because it's more bitter because it's not sun shaded. And when you put milk and maybe some honey or maple syrup, it neutralizes the bitterness. So we only have latte grade matcha. So we have the green and we have the black, but the one that you like, and it's my favorite too, we take the black tea leaf and we grind it into a powder, but we put it under a slow roasted process. So what that does is it results in flavor notes of coffee and chocolate. Some people drink it and they're like, oh, this is like chocolate milk, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
actually 100% black tea, right?
yeah.
So that's what's unique about it. It's our bestseller overall. I tell everyone that's probably going to be half of all of our sales in the future because it's so
Probably.
unique and like it's actually slowly going viral right now in some cafe. If you're near Beverly Hills, go to Series A. It's their number two seller right now. I think it's going to become their top seller soon. I went
Wow.
there a couple of weeks ago. It's really, really good. We're going to enter Eller Bakery in Costa Mesa. Justa Bar, we're almost finalizing to get into Justa Beverage Bar in Venice. So a lot of really well-known places throughout LA. I think you're going to start hearing about it.
Yeah, that's great. I think that like you said, very unique flavor, and for all the coffee lovers, um there it's a very familiar, I guess it hits those, the taste receptors in the same way because I think for me, I like the taste of coffee and espresso. So the black matcha, it's not the same, but it reminds me of it. I guess it has that like same feel to it, same soothing feel. So, yeah, love that black matcha. And then and I love how you explain the whole shading process because we don't think about that, right? I think especially right now, matcha is becoming so popular. It's like if you go to a cafe, I'd be surprised if there's no matcha being available on the menu. But and then now people are getting into okay, ceremonial grade, getting it super green or different taste notes. And I don't think that I think when people think of matcha, we think of Japan, right? We don't think of like Jeju Island. But in Jeju, they do grow a lot of matcha over there, or do grow a lot of tea leaves over there as well. So, will you have like a ceremonial grade, very vibrant green matcha in the future that you guys want to work on?
We definitely are planning for that. So we're right now trying to find out natural shading options. Either using, we have 10,000 trees. We have an agroforestry corridor on our farm. So we're trying to figure out if we can work and grow some within that shade to bring out more L-theanine, more vibrant colors. And then the first flush, if we grind it, that'll be ceremonial. Later harvest will be culinary grade. So we definitely want to follow suit with what the world knows as ceremonial. But we have to find the right way where there's no detriment to health or the quality of the tea.
Yeah, that's great. That's amazing. And with that, you spoke about the milk, right? And you are you still creating the canned matcha?
Yeah, we are. We just did our first sample run. We launched it at Expo. That's where we met, right? And
Yeah.
so we're getting great feedback from our retail partners, just regular people that we meet and hand out. And we're tallying all of that feedback. And we're planning a summer main production run that we're going to use to get into, Whole Foods, Sprouts, all these retailers, but also offer to a food service, the food service industry, hotels, restaurants, casinos, gas stations, places that want an elevated drink profile. And it's sweetened with maple sap or maple water, regenerative organic certified, and it's going to have the regenerative organic A2 gut friendly milk with our regenerative organic certified matcha powder. So it's going to be one of the most nutrient dense, cleanest labels you'll find anywhere out of a canned drink.
Yeah. And then what is this maple water or sap?
So in the East, Vermont, New York, around this time, you can put apparatus in the tree and the maple water will come out. The maple water will be like 99%, 95% plus water, and the remaining amount will be the maple sap with the sugars, the vitamins, the antioxidants all in there. And so it's one of the healthiest things that you can consume. People in Korea have been consuming that for 1,000 years. The First Nations people in North America, that was their way of sustaining their long winters to get their right after the winter. Um, with all of the nutrients that come out of the maple tree. And the great thing is, a lot of these maple forests are being clear cut to grow like other crops or to develop. So by using the maple, we're actually preserving, uh, decades old trees and allowing them not to be clear cut. So it's a win-win for health, for the quality of the drink, but also for the environment.
Yeah, and it's different from maple syrup.
So maple syrup, you take that maple water and you heat it up and you distill it down into syrup. So you're losing a lot of the nutrients. There's heavy processing. So we love maple syrup, but it's actually the degraded form of maple water and maple sap.
Got it. I see. Yeah, that's very I love how there's just this like ancient, again, ancient wisdom, right? That goes back into it. It's not anything high tech.
Right.
This is all just like keeping it as natural as possible,
Yeah, ancient
right?
wisdom is the least tech and it's the best for us. We need to get back to that.
Right, but you can't get like, the problem you mentioned about maple sap or maple water is that it just won't it's not shelf stable.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So even with us, we get it, and then we have to go into the co-packing process to stabilize it.
Got it, okay, and I find it so interesting that, like, this high quality milk, and the maple sap that both of these are, perishable, can be put into a can and still preserve its, like it can still be put on the shelf for a while.
Yeah.
How does that even work?
So it's called the retort process. Unfortunately, it does involve heat, just like you have to stop the oxidation of the green tea leaves by applying heat to it. Very similar, but in RTD or in the co-packing process, it's called retort. So um, that allows it to be 1 year shelf stable. But the beautiful thing is the way I see it is we're giving a convenient form factor, and then we'll have our powders that allow for your daily ritual at home format, right? So if you're in a rush and you just want something just to power you up and you don't have time to do all that at the office, then we'll have the can format. But then we'll have the powder format. Eventually, we'll have sticks. So you could take that on the go and maybe make it more of a convenience format. So we just want to be in as many formats as people need to live a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think of, I wonder, I always wonder, I go, somebody's got to make like a, drive through fast food, chain that is actually like really healthy, that you can still, get stuff that's good tasting on the go, real as fast as McDonald's, and compete out there in the market. I think that will probably eventually come for sure. But I mean, I see that that's what you're doing, right? You kind of look at it going, okay, well, people are on the run. They need something in a can. They need a tea bag. They need like something in a powdered stick, and we can create that for them. But the obviously where that's like the gateway in, and then once you're in, you can now go get into your loose leaf and your powder matcha, and make and create a ritual for yourself. Or have a treat once in a while, something like that. Just forcing you to kind of slow down, and intentionally focus on just making something that's healthy for you.
Yeah,
So,
well, there are places now like True Food Kitchen, Sweet Green. They're doing away with seed oils. They're increasing all of the whole ingredients organic. And I was just talking to someone earlier today. They were talking to True Food Kitchen about a partnership, and I was like, "Hey, I'm trying to get our teas in there." So we're always looking for partnerships like that to elevate the options out there for people who are on the go. But I drove cross country last month. And the problem is you stop and there's no healthy options. You go to like a charging station or a gas station, you walk in, there's no healthy options, right?
yeah.
So my dream and vision is create more and more venues where people who are stopping or people who want a little bit of convenience when they're away from home to be able to access the highest quality food and drink.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I introduced well, you gave me a few cans of the of the black matcha and the green matcha, and for all the coffee lovers, they love the black matcha. I share that with some of my team members at our clinic, and they were like, "This is so good. Like, where do you get this?" I was like, "I don't think it's out yet, but
Summer, fall.
right, but that's amazing. Any other products that you're working on that we haven't mentioned?
Yeah, so we're creating a tea shot that's in concentrated form, 30 milliliters in a very small tea shot. That's equivalent to 10 cups of green tea. And we're going to launch it with some of our partners. I don't know if I told you, but we were in the locker room of the Super Bowl Philadelphia Eagles. So we're going to try to launch with them first, get into more pro sports and then college sports, high performance athletics, because that will really give you that shot of energy, activate the alpha waves in your brain, give you that laser focus that puts you in a zone. And for high performance athletics, like pre-game, in game, when you go out before a play, you just take one. It's just gonna optimize everything, right? I think that's going to be a game changer in pro sports. So we're excited about that. And obviously the RTD black matcha latte and the green matcha latte for launch in the summertime. Those are our two big ones this year.
That's great. That sounds amazing because, yeah, especially in athletics, you have people doing like pre-workout, heavily caffeinated things. I remember I would walk around with like caffeine pills back in college. Because, you just sometimes you're like, oh, I need to study or, I need to work out or I need to do something. I need to use some caffeine pills to get me going, or to keep me alert. But, that's not healthy.
Yeah,
That's not a healthy way to do things.
right.
I mean, you're just overdriving the system.
Yeah,
But like you said, having the antioxidants, having the other nutrients in there, the minerals to balance it all out, right? That is using like ancient wisdom, right? What's already there that has been provided to us from Mother Nature, but using it in modern day world so that we can go out and do things properly, right? And that yeah, I'm excited for that to see how it compares, how it does, how it performs with many of the other types of like stimulants or nootropics or pre-workout stuff that people get into.
yeah. Once we have samples, you'll be one of the first to get them.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. That's awesome. So, all right, any closing thoughts, anything else you want to share with us that we haven't talked about? All right. Oh, there's one thing that I just remembered. It's your logo that you have a goose or geese on it.
Yeah. So a lot of people think they're ducks, but as I mentioned earlier today on the podcast, we planted by seed. But there was from the very beginning there was a battle between the native weeds and the young tea trees growing. And the weeds are like, if they could talk, they'd be like, who's this new guy on the block trying to tread on our territory? Let's suffocate them. Right. So
Right.
there's constant battle. And the idea from the farm was, let's release a flock of geese and see what happens. And what happened was they would eat all the weeds, but they wouldn't touch the young tea trees because of the catechins and the bitterness. So we call them our natural born weeders or weed killers. And they actually helped our tea trees grow to the point where now they were set. They took the territory, right? And
Yeah.
of course, there's still weeds and the farmers have to weed, but now the tea trees have already taken their stake on the land. And so we've the logo with the geese right under the tea tree is like an ode to the help that they gave in the very beginning.
It's a functional ecosystem, just real and true and raw and just the way nature intended it for it to be.
Exactly.
That's amazing. All right, awesome. I think we got a lot out and thank you so much for educating and, doing what you do. I think so many of us in the health field just always, especially I think doctors, in the holistic health field always dream about, having the best of the best, the cleanest of the cleanest and, following mother nature as close as we can, and we always dream about that. Like, at least for me, I always go, "Ah, I just wish that we had a product that was so clean, so pure, they do it this way." And then I'm so glad I found you guys because I think you guys are really doing that and fulfilling that mission. So I want to just acknowledge you guys and thank you guys for doing that.
Thank you. And so much of it is the farmers that have been toiling away for the last 25 years. All the credit, most of the credit goes to them. And then here, my small team of five, we're just trying to spread the message. So it's really empowering and uplifting to meet people like you at events like that can understand what we're doing. And you're becoming like a huge advocate for us. And then even having us on your podcast, very, very thankful. And not only are our teas clean, we've won 27 medals at the most prestigious tea competitions. So, and we're in the top restaurants and cafes. So it is really the highest level. And but it's tough in today's world, noisy world. It's tough to show the value of what we're doing. So really appreciate people like you, Dr. Calvin, to spread the word. And anyone in the audience, we hope you can join our community, support our work, and spread the word. Wildorchard.com is our website, and socials, you'll see a lot of stuff on Instagram. And Dr. Calvin, I'm sure we'll do more and more work together, and looking forward to staying in touch.
Absolutely. So wildorchard.com. And I believe your team just set me up with a affiliate code, which is I think people can get 10% off on the teas if they use code Dr. Calvin, which is amazing. So get that. Try the black matcha. That's like so unique, so incredible. And all the other like you said, award-winning teas. So it's not only just clean, non-toxic, nutritious, regenerative farmed, but it also wins awards. So you're just hitting. You just can't stop this. It's a win-win situation for everything. And I think because of that, because of this energetic movement, like just this is just a high frequency, high energy, company, high energy people, right? High energy product. You can't stop that momentum. It's meant to be. It's naturally just going to grow. So we're just going to hear about it more. And I'm just glad to be one of the first.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Awesome, Michael. Very good. Have you on next time. Take care.